I think we have today, I'm not sure if it's one of the most common halachot of tzitzit, but certainly a very common topic of tzitzit. And then what happens if different things happen to a tzitzit? Is it still kosher or not kosher? It's very common for kids because kids always tear the tzitzit. It's common for adults who work around in the field, outside, and the tzitziot, they keep them out. And when is it tzitzit kosher? And even for people who work in the office, sometimes the tzitzit gets caught in a chair or you're on a bus and you just walk and it happens to get caught and it ties, it falls off. So is it kosher or not kosher? That's a topic of today. When I was a child, I was playing once on Shabbat, one Shabbat. Children run in the bushes and everything, right? Like we used to do as kids. And I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but I ran in a bush and my tzitzit got caught in one of the plants there. And all of the tzitzit is tore, including the piece of cloth around, it's just ripped off and tore. It will also happen if we don't take care when we wash tzitziot. Wool needs to be washed in relatively cool temperature. Wool, otherwise it wrecks the tzitzit. And also the strings can get tangled, so you have to tie it in a special way or put it in a special bag or in a sock so it doesn't get tangled and tied. What happens if this opens? Okay, if one string opens, is it a problem or not a problem? Okay, or how much will it open and will it be a problem? So we learn from the Torah, and I think we mentioned that it has a hoot, it has a string and a gdil, or which is tied a few ties up together. Okay, so we have the part which is tied up together, and we have the strings that come out, and we have to have both parts of them. So we need to have also a section of tied up together, and the strings which are separate. A string is something that by definition is made out of at least two, how do you call it, two parts. You can you weave the strings, right? You weave it and then it wraps around each other. So a string has to have at least two sections of two parts building this string. So if a string, a shamash, no, a string itself. And the string itself, if you take it, don't do it, it'll wreck it a bit. But you open it, you turn it around, you'll see that it's made out of many small strings. Two thick ones, and the thick ones in themselves, they're probably also made out of two thinner ones. Usually that's how they make them today, at least a thick tzitziot. So a string needs to be made out, woven out at least of two parts. Okay, so the string is made out of two parts. Lechatchila, okay, lechatchila, the best way and the nicest way for tzitzit is, and the Shulchan Aruch or the Mishnah Berurah defines that there's a third and 2/3. I'm doing now a class of Rav Kook and photography. Okay, ideas, spiritual ideas, how we bring them into something that we can see, an image that we can see, and also how to use an image to, sometimes it's hard to explain something spiritual, right? So sometimes when you see something, it helps. So that's a series that I'm doing now in Hebrew. And there's a law or rule about, I think, all art, but for sure in photography, the third. You take the screen and you divide it to 9. 2 lines going down, 2 lines going up. They're divided to 3/3 in each way. The place where the lines meet each other, that's the nicest place. That's the best place to focus on. Like if you have the eyes there, you have an important element. So something about 1/3 and 2/3, it's something which looks nice. And also in tzitzit, the best thing is to do it, to have about 12, 18 thumbs, okay, the length of 18 thumbs, and divided to 3. Okay, a third of it is the part which is tied with each other, and the rest is the part which isn't tied with each other. So you have, okay, so the strings will be the 2/3, and the part which is wrapped around, that will be the third. That's the nicest thing of tzitzit. That's how the best thing to do it. But many times, especially when the tzitzit gets old, so it starts tying. It starts wrapping and getting torn. And so what do you do? Get a new pair. You get a new pair. So the tzitzit, it's not so expensive unless you have tchelet, and tchelet can be very expensive. Okay, tchelet can be sometimes 200 shekels, depending on what kind you buy. So it can be quite expensive. So there's, let's maybe say before we go to Shulchan Aruch. How do you dispose of all tzitzit? So the Shulchan Aruch, we will skip to that and then we'll go back to a kosher tzitzit. What do you do with a non-kosher tzitzit? And the answer is, according to the Shulchan Aruch, there's no kedusha in it. There's no holiness in the tzitzit. As soon as you finish with the mitzvah, there's no holiness in it. You can use it for whatever you want to. The Rama says that you shouldn't just throw it into the garbage. Until 5 minutes ago, it was a mitzvah, right? And we respect it as a mitzvah. So you don't just throw it into the garbage, wrap it up into wrappers, and then put it into a garbage. If you can use it as disposable somehow, so that's a good way to disposable. For example, if you need a bookmark for your Gemara, so maybe you can take the old strings of Tzitziot and use it for a bookmark of the Gemara. And the best thing, says Rama, will be to put it in Gniza. But if you can't put it in Gniza, it's too expensive, or the Gniza is too full. So find a nice way to throw it out. So that's what we do for an old tzitzit that isn't kosher anymore. But what about what makes a tzitzit to not to be kosher? The tzitzit, as we know, has 8 strings on each side. And these 8 strings, they are 4 strings that we fold them and then we tie them and we go on. So we have 4 strings times 2, that's 8, right? Each one of the string needs to have a minimum length, which we'll go to it in a moment. Okay, each one of the strings needs to have a minimum length. Each one of the 4 strings needs to have a minimum length. Okay, so let's say I have 4 strings. I fold them to 2, and I know exactly what belongs to what. And from each one of those 4 strings, one of the half got cut until the minimum. Okay, it got cut until the minimum. The tzitzit is still kosher because we say that from the 4 that you fold them into 2, at least one of the sides needs to have a minimal length. So let's see if the tzitzit here. Right, let's have the tzitzit here. When I make my tzitzit, I'm very careful to make sure that these 4 will always be on one side, and these 4 will always be on one side. They'll never mix up. Okay, so I'll never have 2 strings from here and 2 strings from here. Okay, I'll make sure when I make my tzitzit, so I make a small knot on one side, and I know always that, and these are 2 edges of 2 different of the same string. Okay, so I'll make sure always one side and the other side that they will never mix up. Why does it help me? Let's say I have here a group of 4 strings and a group of 4 strings. Let's say the 4 strings here get cut really right next to the knot. I mean, right next to the knot, but the other side is long and great. Okay, so those 4 strings here, I know for sure are 4 different strings, which means all of my 4 strings are whole, right? So that's fine. It's kosher. If I didn't take care and didn't make sure the strings, the edges don't mix up, okay? So let's say I have here 4 strings. It could be that these 2, for example, are actually the same string, right? Because maybe I fold them. So if 2 strings get cut, okay, from one side, and I didn't make sure to keep them separate, maybe it's one string. Maybe it's one string. And we said that from the 4 strings we have, each one of these 4 strings has to have at least a minimum length, which we'll get to it in just a moment. Okay, but if I didn't make sure to separate them and keep them, so maybe I got mixed up. And if 2 strings from one side get cut off, so the tzitzit is pasul. Tzitzit is pasul. The same, and very soon we get to the minimum length. Let's say I keep these strings will always be in the right. These strings will always be in the left. Okay, as we said, let's say 4 strings get cut off, all of them now get until the minimum edge. These 4 strings are 4 different strings, it's still kosher. But let's say I have one string from this side and one string from this side, okay, and they get cut off right at the bottom, right at the edge or next to the knot. So since they might be the same string, and I'm not sure if it's the same string or not, they might be the same string. So maybe now the city is possible. Okay, so let's go and make it easy. Okay, we're going to make it easy for us to remember. If one string out of the 8 got cut off, it's for sure kosher. Okay, it's for sure kosher. If 2 strings out of the 8 got cut off, then it starts to become a question, and you can ask someone, but it starts to become a question. What's the minimal length? Okay, what's the minimum length? And the answer that determined the halacha is kedei aniva. Kedei aniva, maybe it's easier to show it. It should be long enough that I can wrap it around the strings, the other strings, and tie it. Okay, wrap it around the other strings and tie it. So this string is long. Obviously, I can wrap it around the other strings many, many times. I think even if a string is this length, probably 1 inch, maybe even less than 1 inch long, it's enough to wrap it around the strings and tie them. So if my tzitzit got cut, I made myself nice tzitzit, nice and long, and then a few centimeters, a few inches got cut off, and then a few more and a few more. And now I have about, let's say, this length left, right? I have, let's say, 3 inches left. It's kosher. It's kosher. The minimum starts to become a question, let's say, from about, let's say 1 inch, probably less, probably 1 inch. So if you have, it's going to become shorter and shorter and shorter from washing or from other things, it's still kosher. It's still kosher. When we say shorter, it's also if it gets cut. Or maybe perhaps a bit more common if one throws it into the washing machine, and after a few times, the strings start opening and open and open and open and open and open and open and open. An open string is a problem, right? But if it still has, like it starts to get unstringed, right? If it still has have at least, let's say, 1 inch of the string, which is still fine, so that it is fine, okay? And there's a very good tip to make sure that it don't open. One is to make a knot, a small knot at the edge of the tzitzit, edge of the string. It doesn't open. Another way is to take super glue without sticking your hands. I'm not sure you want to stick your hands, and just put the tip of super glue or clear lac from if your wife or someone does nail polish, so take some nail polish and put it at the edge of the tzitzit, and that's fine. That keeps the tzitzit kosher. So we discussed up to now what happens if the knots get the strings get cut on this part. What happens? And this also wants a question. If the tzitzit gets cut here in this part, close to the beged itself, close to the shirt. What is it? If one of the strings, okay, one of the strings, if all 4 strings get cut off, it will fall off. If one of the strings gets cut off, so it's a problem and it's possible and you can't fix it up again. So you have to change it. So if one string got cut off, you're playing with a knife, playing with scissors, and whoops, you cut off something. Don't play with a knife. For sure, not next to the tzitzit. But if one of the strings gets cut off here, so it is possible. Okay. There's an argument that we said that we have to have kedei aniva, okay, which is enough to tie the string around the other strings. There's an argument exactly where do you measure it from. Today, as you said, it's not so expensive, right? You can buy tzitziot. And if it's still kosher and it gets cut off here, so it's fine. When it really gets close, less than 1 inch to the knot, then you should change tzitziot. Okay, so if you want to summarize it up, from the knot and on, where the string starts to separate, if one string only got cut off, even if there's nothing left of the string, the tzitzit is still kosher. If 2 strings got cut off until the knot, then we have a question, depending how you made the tzitzit. And if each string that got cut off has about an inch left, so the tzitzit is kosher. I'm saying about an inch. Usually it's much, much less than an inch. Okay, but about an inch. Another question, which is relatively common. Let's say the the tzitzit is all old, or it gets stuck, all of this gets stuck or caught on something, and it pulls it, and the hole here where the tzitzit is connected, the hole here gets open, and it gets cut, and the tzitzit, there's just a tiny bit left, okay, just a few millimeters left, connecting the tzitzit to the shirt of the tzitzit. Okay, so is that kosher or not? And it happens. I just got, I think last week, a question on the WhatsApp. Here's my tzitzit. Something pulled on all the tzitzit, and they pulled it and made the hole here much, much bigger. There's just, I think, half a centimeter was left there. Is the tzitzit kosher or not? Why not? So in the beginning, here we have an interesting halacha. In the beginning, when we make the tzitzit, okay, when we make the tzitzit, they should have quite a distance between the edge of the shirt to the hole. Al kanfevik dem. It should be on the edge on the edge of the garment, of the shirt, but not right at the edge. Okay, on the edge. So the tzitzit needs to be, when you usually buy a tzitzit, it has a hole in it. That's the right place to do it. That's where it should be. Okay, that's where it should be. And the tzitzit needs to be made when the tied as it is. But and here we have an interesting halacha. If it was made in a kosher way, and then this hole became bigger and bigger until it almost reaches the end, okay? It almost reaches the end, so it's still kosher. As long as it's still a hole and it's not tied, it's not cut all the way, it's still kosher. Okay, so if something pulled on your tzitzit and it's pulled, and the tzitzit, the hole became bigger and bigger, and there's still some of the edge left, the tzitzit is kosher. But if it pulled too much and now it's completely disconnected, that's it. You can't fix the tzitzit. Okay, you can't just, I'll just tie it back and it will be fine. Okay, if it's already disconnected, completely disconnected, you can't just say, okay, I'll just put it here, take the shirt and sew the shirt again, and everything will be fine. No, that you can't do. And why not? It's a halacha, which is in tzitzit and also in sukkah. It's called ta'aseh. Gdilim ta'aseh lecha. Ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asoi. We're getting close to Sukkot, just more than a month. A sukkah and also a tzitzit, this part of the mitzvah of it is the action of us making a tzitzit in the regular way of making a tzitzit. And the same with Sukkot, us making a sukkah in the regular way of making a sukkah. So for example, when you build a house, usually what do you build first? The walls or the roof? The foundations or the walls, right? So in a sukkah, first we have to put the walls, or at least some of the walls, and then you can put the schach on. Okay, then you can put the schach. If you put first the schach and then the walls, many times it will be pasul. Okay, in a sukkah. The same with tzitzit. First you have to have a garment, okay, the shirt or whatever it is. And then on the garment, you tie the tzitzit. But if you take away the tzitzit which are tied, and then you just connect them to the garment, that's called ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. Doing and don't take something which is already done. Maybe here let's just learn something which is very interesting in not just halacha, but also in a spiritual thing. Both Sukkot is like Ve'en Olam Haba, like the world to come, something very special. We sit in the sukkah, it's like in the world to come. We feel the presence of Hashem in the sukkah, and maybe the divine presence, and the Zohar said it's like sitting underneath the shade of heaven. Something very, very high on Sukkot, right? Also tzitzit. Tzitzit remind us of all of the mitzvot. It reminds us of all the mitzvot. And the Judaism, the Torah teaches us that the process is an important part of the mission. Okay, we don't just aim to the goal and that's it. Okay, I have it, it's it. I don't care how it was made. We see it in tzitzit, we see it in many other things. The process to reach the mitzvah, what we do in our life, the effort we do, that is super important. And even if sometimes if we don't manage to reach the goal, we learn, we start learning Torah, for example. The Maharal writes that if a person learns Torah, and then he forgets it. Or maybe even he put effort in learning Torah and he didn't understand the Mishnah Berurah right. He didn't understand the Gemara right. But now for 2 hours, he was putting his effort in learning Torah. He did the mitzvah. He now did the mitzvah of learning Torah. That's why in the morning, we say, la'asok b'divrei Torah. La'asok doesn't mean to learn Torah or to know Torah. It's the effort we put. La'asok is the effort we put in learning Torah. So also the same idea, maybe if ta'aseh b'lo me'asui, is the effort, what brings us to the mitzvah. It's not enough just to have a ready tzitzit. It's what brings us to the tzitzit. Another halacha which we didn't discuss in tzitzit is that when it's made, if tzitzit is made, it needs to be made in the intention of a mitzvah. Okay? So the mitzvah itself, we do it when we wear the tzitzit. But even when it's made, even when they take the strings and weave the strings, even then, that should be done for the intention of the Shem Mitzvah Tzitzit. So you can see here how the process is so important to lead us to the mitzvah of Tzitzit, which is a very easy. That's a big question of machines. If you buy Tzitzit, I went to Bnei Brak. I needed to buy something for the base, something special stickers that have Basari or Chalavi. Now they became very common. In the past, you had to go to a few places in Bnei Brak. That's the only places where you found them. So I go to a place in Bnei Brak, somewhere there at night, and it's an industrial area. I open the door and I see a guy. It was the wrong floor. I had to go a floor above. But I see a guy on a bike, or something that looked like a bike, and that it was a machine that was powered by him, like riding the bike, and that was weaving the strings of the tzitzit. So he was making, I wouldn't say handmade tzitzit because he was doing it by legs, but he was doing it with his mind, with his effort. And there's a big question about machines. Same about matzah. For Pesach, we have a long time. Is matzah machine, is that considered l'shem, ishma, or not? But with tzitzit even more, because tzitzit, we really think about the intention of tzitzit. And if you look at the cheap tzitzit you buy so many times woven by machine, it will say on it, the beginning of the string was woven by a person handmade. Okay, but the most of it was woven by machine. The beginning was handmade. Yes, you'll find this. That the ones that you pay more than 20 shekels for the shirt and the strings together, if you pay, say, 20 shekels just for the strings, so that's woven by handmade. Okay, so that's a... Another question we have, and it's not so maybe common because we buy tzitzit which are relatively big, but what is the minimum size of a tzitzit to be good? And now we aren't talking about the strings, we are talking about the shirt itself. What's the minimum size of a string, of the shirt? So the talit you buy in shul, you go to shul with, that's quite big, that's fine. And that's also something interesting in the tzitzit. Tzitzit, it's a mitzvah of strings that we put on a shirt or something that we wear. Okay, if I just take 4 strings tied to my pants, to my belt, like I have tied to my belt, the shleikers, that actually could be a good invention. I take shleikers, you know shleikers? How do you call shleikers in English? Shleikers, shleikers are those things that sometimes you see, all the people usually, not always, it's instead of a belt, it has clips on both sides. How do you call it? Suspender. Shleikers sounds much nicer. Okay, so suspenders. But let's say I make myself shleikers is in the Yiddish. Okay, so I make myself tzitzit on shleikers. Right? It's a hot summer day in Ma'ale Adumim, and I have a startup. Right? Put the tzitzit suspenders, the cool tzitzit. Right? Also cool because it looks cool, and also because it's cool outside. So it's not kosher. It's not just about the strings. It's also about what we wear, which also has a spiritual meaning. It's about what covers us as people, and on that, what covers us as people, we add a mitzvah. The mitzvah is connected to us. So it needs to be on something which is something that we wear. And that's something that we wear, says the Shulchan Aruch, it's something that you can cover most of a body of a child who can go by himself to the outside. It needs to have something which is important. the poskim discuss what exactly it is, and the common halacha is it needs to be an amma. Okay, hand, how do you call it an amma in English? About 60 centimeters and 60 centimeters from each side. Okay, that's the best. It can also be smaller, but the best size as it is amma, an amma from each side.
60 by 60.
From each, yeah, not including the hole. Not including the
Both sides?
each side.
Oh, each side.
Each side. Okay, some say it's even less than that. Maybe you'll say about 40 centimeters, which is also fine. 40 centimeters, but less than 40, that's already becomes a bit small. Okay, so that's the minimum size of a tzitzit. Okay, so we discussed about when a tzitzit becomes pasul. Okay, and we discussed about the shirt itself. What should be the minimum size of the shirt? And we'll just end with. We have a few. We have time for more halachot. Okay, great. I thought we. Okay. We'll learn hopefully 2 more halachot, which also show.
All the tzitzits that are sold, are they minimum? Are they more than the
Tzitzit for adults that are sold will be the minimum size. Yeah. Obviously, tzitzit for kids, they're too small. But they go by sizes. So I think even size 4 is quite, which fits small people. That's already big enough. Okay, size 5 for sure, and 6 for sure. We discussed about the connection between the tzitzit itself and the shirt that we wear, right? It's not just enough to have the strings need to be connected part of a shirt. We might think that it's a mitzvah for the shirt to have a tzitzit, which means I should have all of my shirts at home with a tzitzit on them. No, the mitzvah is on the person. And it's an interesting mitzvah because we don't have so many mitzvahs which are similar. It's a mitzvah on the person when he wears a shirt that has 4 corners, then he's obligated in tzitzit. If a person doesn't have any shirt with 4 corners, he's exempted, he's patur. He doesn't need to put tzitzit on that. We say to him, maybe put on clothes with 4 corners, it's a great mitzvah, do it. But it's the obligation of a person when he has a garment or a shirt with 4 corners. And therefore, because it's a mitzvah on a person, we say the bracha when we wear the tzitzit. Okay, okay, because the mitzvah is on the person when he wears the tzitzit. And here, that brings us to a question. Do we say shechianu? Do we say shechianu on a new tzitzit? Do we say shechianu on a new tzitzit? If a person, now let's go on the olden times. Okay, in the olden times, I think in the last 50 years, we hardly say shechianu on new clothes. Right? That's another shirt. I bought it for $5 in clearance in Walmart or in Fox or whatever it was. It doesn't give me so much happiness when I have a new shirt. In the olden times, I have a new shirt. You wear a shirt once a year. Wow, a new shirt. Obviously, you say shechianu, right? So today we don't see so much shechianu on new clothes. And therefore, also, we usually don't see so much shechianu on the tzitzit because, tzitzit, okay. I have 5 of those at home. 2 of them are ripped, 1 of them. But it's not so special in the past. Although maybe it should be special. But we won't go into it now. If a person buys a new tzitzit, okay, if he buys a new tzitzit, he should also say shechianu when he buys the new tzitzit. Okay? In the olden times, they used to say shechianu when you buy the clothes. That was the most thing. I went to shopping, I went to the mall, I bought something new. You say shechianu when you buy the tzitzit. So in the old days, you say shechianu when you buy a new tzitzit. Today, we usually say shechianu when we wear it for the first time. So if you bought a nice talit, you bought a nice talit for Shabbat. That's something special. You say shechianu on the talit when you buy the nice talit, and we will end with the halacha, which you probably saw it many times, when you wear it. But today we usually say it when you wear it, like any other things. In the olden times, when you buy it, today when you wear it. If you go to a wedding, many weddings, not all of them, the chatan puts a tzitzit on and says shechianu because he has a new talit, right? So not just the chatan because of the wedding and the happiness. Whenever we buy a new talit, we can say on it shechianu. We can say on shechianu, and our custom today is on the first time when you buy a new talit, so we say shechianu on the new talit.